Wait, what? My neurologist told me that my facial masking might be a side effect of levodopa and not Parkinson's itself. That completely threw me. And stick around to the end because I'm going to share some surprising side effects of Parkinson's meds that almost nobody talks about. And trust me, some of them are going to make your jaw drop, literally.
They told him he had 5 good years left. That was 15 years ago. He's still standing, still speaking, still living. This is Living with Parkinson's, the good, the bad, and the reality. A podcast about what happens when life throws you something incurable and you fight back anyway. Hosted by Bryce Perry. Diagnosed at 40, 15 years into the battle. This is the truth behind the tremor. Let's begin.
Hey there, I am so glad you're here. And whether you've been following along for a while or you just stumbled across this podcast while searching for answers, welcome. I'm Bryce, and this is Living with Parkinson's, the good, the bad, and the reality. And this is a space where we talk honestly, we laugh when we can, and we lean on each other to make it through. Here we share stories, strategies, and moments of real life truth about what it's like to live with Parkinson's and how to keep going, even when your body isn't quite cooperating. So if that sounds like the kind of support that you need, hit that subscribe button and let's jump into today's episode. So I'm sitting there in my neurologist's office, right? Thinking about, just thinking that we're going to go through and talk about the normal stuff, the meds, maybe tweak the timing, the usual. And then mid conversation, I mentioned how I started noticing this facial masking more in the last 6 months. And when your face just doesn't seem to show emotion like it used to. So that's what I was dealing with. That was my biggest kind of thing that was going on in my life here. And he looks at me and he says, well, Bryce, that could actually be a side effect of the levodopa. And I'm literally like, wait, what? I've had Parkinson's for 14 years. And all this time I thought facial masking was just a symptom of the disease and not something being triggered or worsened by the very thing that's supposed to help me. That moment really stuck with me, and it made me wonder, how many other things have I blamed on Parkinson's that are really effects of the treatment? And that's what we're going to talk about right now. So let's get clear for a second, okay? Parkinson's symptoms are caused by the loss of dopamine in the brain, right? Bradykinesia, that's the slowness of movement, rigidity and stiffness. And those are my old friends. Tremors, balance problems, that shuffling walk, sleep disturbances, anxiety and depression, and facial masking. Well, maybe. You know, these are all part of the disease. They happen before you start the medication. And I remember in my early years, stiffness was the thing that really affected me. I had a tremor later, but again, before I started my meds, before I was diagnosed. But the cement-like tightness that made everything harder, that stiffness, that was my major side effect. And it still is today. It really is, all the way from my right foot, my left, like my feet, all the way up to everywhere. So side effects, okay? Those come after you start treating the disease, especially with levodopa, dopamine, agonists. I can never say that right? Agonists, COMT inhibitors, and MAOB inhibitors. They can sneak in gradually, or they can hit you like a truck. So what are the common side effects of the Parkinson's meds? Here's what a lot of people deal with when they're on medication. Okay, nausea. That first month on levodopa felt like I was pregnant with triplets, right? Dizziness and low blood pressure. Dyskinesia, right? Dyskinesia, that's those involuntary wiggly movements that make you look like you're dancing badly at a wedding. And stay tuned. I have an entire episode. We're going to talk about dyskinesia, kind of break it down a little bit. Hallucinations, visual, right? Or even, I can't say this right, but olfactory, smelling smoke when there's none. Impulse control issues like shopping, gambling, and, let's just say other urges. Insomnia, fatigue, and brain fog. Once I bought 3 snow shovels in 1 week. Three. Now I live in Winnipeg, so some of you might think I need 3, but I only need 1. But in that moment, it made perfect sense. I was like, I could use one for this when it's really heavy and one this way when it's lighter. And, anyway, it was just more compulsive behavior than anything. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about this facial masking, okay? Whether it be a symptom or a side effect. So traditionally, it's always been considered a motor symptom of Parkinson's, the same dopamine loss that affects your arms and legs and it also dulls that expression in your face. But now some neurologists like mine are saying that levodopa might actually worsen or trigger it in some people, like the way it interacts with certain muscle groups, especially the small facial muscles. Facial, my God. All right, let's say that again. The way it interacts with certain muscle groups, right, especially the small facial muscles, could contribute to the masking look. So, which one is it? Is it a symptom or a side effect? Well, truthfully, I think it's a little both. I didn't notice the masking very much until probably, I'm going to say, a year ago. Now, I was diagnosed almost 15 years ago, just a month or two away from my 15th anniversary, or PD's birthday, whatever you want to call it. It's not a great celebration, but we'll do it. Um, and so I didn't start recognizing this facial mask until probably about a year ago. So um, that's why I don't know, right? Like which way do you go? But anyway, so maybe Parkinson's laid the foundation and the meds added the finishing touch. That's why I'm saying a little of both. It's not exactly comforting, but at least it gives me a better lens to understand what's going on. And it also shows me that, how our caregivers, our doctors, our neurologists, our researchers are finding some things now that are different. There's a lot of things and statistics that have changed since I was diagnosed, like in the last 15 years, even with the percentage that it was genetic, right? When I was first diagnosed 15 years ago, it was a lot lower than it is today. So maybe it's a little bit of both now. But what does that matter? Well, it matters, because if we don't know whether something's a symptom or a side effect, how can we actually treat it properly? If it's a symptom, we might need more medication. If it's a side effect, we might need less or something different. Understanding that difference also helps the people around us, our partners, our caregivers, our kids, make sense of what's going on. They're trying to help, but it's hard to keep up when the symptoms and the side effects look almost the same. And that's why, what do I do? So what do I do? Here's what I do. I now keep this journal, right? I've talked about journaling before, but it's just a simple note app on my phone. So this one I have just on my phone. I use my note app, and I just save it and I go back into it. And all I put in there, like what happened, what meds I took, and how I felt. And over time, patterns show up. And when I see my neurologist, it's not guesswork anymore, it's data. And remember, I said, I'm not looking for one time events, right? I'm not looking, hey, I didn't sleep last night, but I slept for the last month, no problem. I'm looking for a consistent pattern in something happening to me. And when I see this thing happening, and I kind of do it like it's more than three times a month, right? If it's happening three or more times a month, then I start looking into my journal and okay, what's the pattern? How many, what kind of medication I took? When did it happen? My off, my on times? How did I sleep that night? I kind of dig deeper at that point. So, as promised, I talked about the surprising side effects that you've probably never heard about. And maybe you have. In the comments, I want you to tell me after you hear these, were any of these a shocker to you? Have you heard of this before? Or maybe you have heard of it before. Maybe I'm just out in left field. But just play along in the comments. I love everybody interacting and become a community. That's what it's all about, right? And I want to know that that I'm not the only one that was surprised by some of these. So and by the way, if you're still here and you're not subscribed to the podcast or the channel, subscribe. This is what we do. Let's just break this down. It's real. It's honest. There's no fluff here, right? But anyway, let's talk about again. This is surprising side effects. Okay, here's the part I told you to stick around for, and this is it. These are the side effects most people don't know. Impulse control issues, not just restlessness. Okay, not rest. We're talking about compulsive gambling, binge eating, hypersexuality, and shopping like you've got unlimited credit. And if something feels off, if one of those things feels off, or then that is something to talk to your neurologist or your doctor about immediately, right? It could not. Maybe it's not your fault. Maybe after all, it's not your fault. Maybe it's just the meds. But that's those things you need to tackle quick and honestly, as fast as you can. How about this one? Sudden sleep, sudden sleep attacks. You can literally fall asleep mid-sentence. And that's not just being tired. That's medication induced narcolepsy. That's what that is. So if this is you, don't drive. Don't drive. And if you're listening to this podcast right now in your car, stop. Talk to your doctor about alternatives if that's happening. So here's another side effect. of the meds. Low blood pressure, right? Low blood pressure, orthostatic hypertension. You stand up and the world spins. And that's not Parkinson's. That's often a medication side effect. And some people use compression socks or hydration or meal timing can help with that as well. And I get that. With I think I've told you before, my second dose or third dose, right around it's like mid early afternoon, depending on when I woke up. And that one, if I don't have something in my tummy, man, I'm going for a spill. Here's one, a wild one. How about phantom smells? Smelling things that aren't there, like smoke, garbage, or perfume. That could be olfactory hallucinations linked to meds like MAO-B inhibitors. That was a new one to me. Smelling. I mean, like as long as I burnt toast, right? Anyway, how about this side effect? Jaw clenching or facial rigidity. Sometimes it feels like Parkinson's stiffness, but it can actually be an effect of the meds, tightening those small muscle groups. And I guess your face just clenches right up, like it's like tight and hard. And that's actually from the meds, right? So mention that to your neurologist or your doctor because it might be fixable with a dosage tweak. I wish someone had told me these things earlier, right? I spent too long blaming myself, thinking I was losing control when really I was just reacting to the medication my body wasn't loving in some of these instances. And that's why I'm sharing it here, right? Even if one of these made you go, oh my gosh, that's me, then I'm glad we had this conversation. So now let's hear from you. Let's hear from the community. This is your part. This is where you jump in now. What's the one thing that you thought was a symptom of Parkinson's, but you later learned was a side effect, or maybe you learned it today? Drop in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. I find that, and I get a lot of DMs and comments that people are like they're watching me or listening to me, but really they're getting so much out of the comments. They're hearing what others are going through and they're like, that's me, and they're feeling less alone. So this community that we're doing, get involved, be a part of it. And again, if you're new here and you've never commented, or maybe you're not, maybe you've never commented before, come on out and say, hey, I'm telling you, it's powerful. And if this helped you at all, give it a like and share it with your Parkinson's group if you're in one, or send it to a friend who needs to hear this. And if you want to go deeper in this community, then join us in the inner circle. We do monthly live video chats. We go behind the scene videos. We talk real. It's a private group. No pressure. There's no pressure. There's just support. So if you want something more, if you want to go deeper, you want to go harder in this, you want to learn a little bit more, and you can also DM me there as well. And there's a Q&A section just for me. And it's really where I can really interact and really get personal and really help. And we've become it's becoming like it's like a support group, right? So if you don't have that support or you don't have that community, I'm going to tell you right now, it's just so important. It is so important. So take that step. There are links in the description below. Come out and join us, and take the walk with us. Do some life with us. But anyway, thanks for being here, no matter where it is. Thank you for sharing this road with me. And as always, keep doing life today.